Dad refuses to walk me down the aisle for his stepdaughter's wedding. Now he's shocked that I uninvited him and found a replacement. It's been a while since this incident has been on my mind, and I really hope I can get some advice and suggestions from all of you here on Reddit. Like every other girl, I had big dreams of how my wedding would be. I imagined everything as flawless as it could have been, and it was totally picture perfect. But all of that fell to pieces the moment my father came to the wedding. You might wonder why my father's entry would destroy my wedding day. Well, this is what my story is about. To make all of this mess a little more understandable, let me give you some context and an overview of my family tree. Initially, it was just my mom, dad and I, but that changed when I turned 16, and my parents got divorced and I started living with just my mom. Within a year, my dad was married to another lady. Since then, the family just became bigger and bigger, as my stepmother also had 2 kids, Lily and Olive. 2 years later, my mother also got married, and now I also have a stepdad. I wish I could say that we all became one big happy blended family, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Don't get me wrong, I am very happy for my parents that they were able to find their soulmates. My stepmom was and is still very nice, and my stepdad has also been as involved as he could have been. But all my life, I felt like a secondary person who was just a side character to everybody else's story. It all started with my dad getting remarried. As a kid who grew up in a small family, I always believed in the motto "the bigger, the better" when it came to families, and I thought that I could befriend Lily, my stepmom's daughter, as she was also around my age. But she always seemed a little disinterested in talking to me, so I stopped trying after some time. I did not hold any grudges for this because I could understand why someone would be a little hesitant to become friends with their new stepfather's daughter. But my dad, on the other hand, wanted Lily to feel comfortable around him, which was again a good thing since they would be soon living together. What I never knew was that this new relationship was developing at the cost of losing another. The signs of Dad's changing priorities were subtle at first, but they quickly became impossible to ignore. It started small, with forgotten promises and missed events. The standing father-daughter ice cream dates we'd had every Friday since I was 5 suddenly became rare, then stopped altogether. When I asked about it, Dad would ruffle my hair and say, "Next week, princess. I promise." But next week never seemed to come. Then came the missed milestones. My first big debate tournament in junior year, I scanned the audience, hoping to see him, but his seat remained empty. When I called him afterward, he answered distractedly, apologizing and explaining that he had to help Lily with her science project meltdown. And then this became a never-ending pattern with him. My high school graduation? Dad showed up late, having come straight from Olive's dance recital. My college acceptance? He was too busy helping Lily with her college applications to celebrate with me. But this wasn't the worst of it. The final straw came during my sophomore year of college. I'd been selected for a prestigious internship at a major news network in New York, a huge stepping stone for my journalism career. The day before I was supposed to fly out, my appendix ruptured. I woke up in the hospital, in pain, to find only my mom by my side. Dad was nowhere to be seen. When I asked Mom, she just told me that he couldn't come, 'cause something came up. I was so hurt, because what could have been so important that he couldn't come for his daughter, who not only is in physical pain but also lost a job that she worked so hard for? Well, I got the answer to this a month later. Dad decided that Mom and I should have dinner at his place for old time's sake, especially because I had been ignoring him ever since my surgery. When we got there, we realized it was not only going to be 3 of us but my stepmom and her kids as well. I'll be honest, after everything that had happened, I was a little jealous of Lily and hated that she had her real dad and also my dad available for her every minute of the day. But I controlled my anger and decided to at least pretend to be nice to everybody. However, all of that changed the moment my father had the audacity to say that it was very rude of me to not respond to his calls and texts in the last month. I reminded him that I was going through the most difficult time of my life and he was not there. He said that he was busy and had other things to deal with, and I later got to know what was so important that he couldn't go to the hospital to see his sick daughter. If you haven't guessed it yet, it was again about Lily. Apparently, she and her boyfriend broke up that day and she had a meltdown. That was the last time my dad and I talked for a while. I know everything till now might seem a little off topic, but believe me, you'll need to know all of this stuff so that you can see where I'm coming from. Anyway, after that dinner, I returned to college and very soon also found an internship. I couldn't go back home for a long time, and that meant that I had 0 conversations with my dad. As the years passed, the distance between us grew. I saw him less and less, our conversations becoming shorter and more superficial. Meanwhile, his relationship with Lily flourished. He was at every one of her college events, cheering her on from the sidelines. When she landed her first job out of college, he threw her a big party. I found out about it on Facebook. So, all of this just made me question what had I done to be put on the sidelines my whole life. On the brighter side, I also met Stan at one of the internships I was part of. What started as a sweet date, turned into a committed relationship very soon. We graduated together and then also got our jobs around the same time. Stan was always so sweet and supportive, and because of that and many more reasons, I didn't think twice to say yes when he proposed to me. I was finally building a life of my own where I did not feel like someone on the sidelines. Mom was thrilled, of course. She immediately threw herself into wedding planning mode, offering to help with every detail. But when I called Dad to tell him, his reaction was lukewarm at best. He again seemed distracted, so before he could say that he was needed elsewhere, I hung up. It was one of the biggest moments of my life, and he couldn't even give me 5 minutes of his undivided attention. After much discussion and planning, we set our wedding date for exactly 5 months later. We sent all our relatives save the date cards and the majority of them RSVP'd yes. Even my dad and his family. But I still had a secret I hadn't told Dad. I wanted him to walk me down the aisle. Despite everything that had happened, he was still my father and traditions mattered to me. I hoped that my wedding day would be a chance for us to reconnect, to heal some of the wounds that had festered over the years. So, I had planned that a month before the big day, I would surprise him with the news, and ask him to walk me down the aisle. And that's what I did. But I didn't know that I was about to be surprised by my dad and his beloved stepdaughter. I called Dad and started by asking how he was doing, and he said that he is doing great and is over the moon, now that his daughters are getting married. I thought I heard him wrong, so I confirmed what he meant by daughters. And what came next shook me to the core. Lily was also getting married. But that wasn't the news that got me. She was getting married on the same day, the same month as my wedding day. Not a single word came out of my mouth, cause how could my own dad be okay with this? And why would Lily do this to me when she knew I was getting married that particular day? I chose the day 5 months in advance, and somehow, she also felt the need to get wed on the same day. I'll be honest, even though I was jealous of Lily as a confused teen, I never blamed her for anything. But at that moment, I felt like all this time, she had tried to steal my father and hog attention. I asked Dad if he was okay with these 2 weddings on the same date, and he simply said that Lily met the love of her life a month ago, and couldn't wait to get married, and as her dad, he was going to be supportive of that. Distracting myself from this frustrating news, I questioned Dad that he would surely be attending my wedding right because I wanted him to walk me down the aisle. But then came the next blow. Lily had also asked him to walk her down the aisle, and my dad had agreed to do so. I was enraged. Why was she doing this? I never hurt Lily and was always nice to her. Clearly, the feelings were not mutual. I could have ignored all of this, but I couldn't ignore how nonchalant my father was about all of this. He thought that he could simply just drop another meaningless sorry, and get away with it. I simply said, Dad, I am done with this disappointing back and forth every time, and I hope this is the last time we ever talk. Before he could say another word, I hung up. When my wedding day finally came, I had come to terms with my dad and some other relatives not being there, since Lily had also invited many of them. I decided I wouldn't let it ruin my big day, and I was determined to enjoy it with my other family and friends. Also, my stepdad found out about what happened with my dad, and he offered to walk me down the aisle if I wanted him to. I could not have been happier and was thankful to have a father figure who cared. My stepdad and I didn't get to spend much time together when he first joined our family because I was mostly away at college, but he was always kind to me and would call me from time to time to ask how I was doing. So finally, everything was lining up just right. Then came the day of the wedding. I was very excited and a little bit jittery about everything. Fortunately, Mom and my stepdad had taken care of everything. The day was unfolding exactly as I'd hoped. Until it wasn't. About 2 hours before the ceremony, my dad appeared out of nowhere. I was busy getting ready with my bridesmaids, but he demanded that he wanted to have a chat with me. I was irritated but decided to listen to what he had to say. As soon as he entered the room, he ran to hug me and started complimenting me, but I could tell that was not what he was there for, so I asked him to get to the point. And then came another shocking news. Apparently, at the last moment, Lily felt that it would be much better if her bio dad walked her down the aisle. When Dad tried to argue about her last-minute changes, she made a snarky comment that he should feel lucky that he's still invited to the wedding. Dad, being Dad, started listing out everything he has done for her till now, and Lily was not one to take any of his attitude. So, she wanted him to leave as soon as possible because she did not want any nuisance because of him. Listening to all that happened, I felt a little bad for Dad because he gave his all to Lily and now he was uninvited to be part of her special day. But at the same time, a tiny part of me also felt a tinge of satisfaction. It was like my dad was finally getting a taste of what it felt like to be ignored by someone he cared about. Regardless, I consoled Dad in the best way I could and told him that he was welcome to attend my wedding and that we would always have a place for him. He instantly felt better and said that he was happy that he could still walk his daughter down the aisle. I froze. Where did he get that from? I quickly explained that while he could come to the ceremony and the reception afterward, my stepdad was going to walk me down the aisle. We had already planned it that way. He definitely did not take it well. He got up and started shouting stuff like, "Why would my stepdad do that when he was here?" I told him to calm down so that we could talk about this like adults, but he didn't care. Dad started guilt-tripping me by saying that both of his daughters, whom he took care of, were erasing him from their life. On any other day, I would have also screamed my heart out and called him out on everything he had not done for me. But I remained calm as I was about to get married and I didn't want him to ruin my happy day. But Dad had something else in his mind. He ran out of the room and started shouting my stepdad's name. Before I knew it, my stepdad heard the commotion and came to investigate. The moment he stepped into the room, my father lunged at him. Security rushed inside, pulling the two men apart. Stan, my fiancé, stepped in too and told the guards to escort Dad from the premises. I was appalled. The one day I thought of my life that could have been about me, surrounded by my loving friends and families, was also destroyed. My bridesmaids tried to console me and told me to get back to getting ready. Stan, being the best partner ever, offered that if I didn't feel up to it, then he would understand. But we had put a lot of thought and effort into the preparations and decided that we would move forward with the ceremony. An hour later, we were married and had a great after-party. Even though everything happened very smoothly, I was a little bit out of my head the whole time. But we still did the best we could have done. Nothing else mattered now other than the fact that I was happily married. A few weeks after the wedding, I decided to meet up with my dad. Part of me wanted closure, and the other part hoped we could salvage something from our shattered relationship. We agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop. As soon as I saw him, I could tell that this was not going to be easy. The first words out of his mouth should have been sorry, but he said, "Can you be a little quick, honey? Something urgent has come up." And honestly, I was ready for it. I started by laying it all out, that I was done with his antics and he better buckle up for what I was going to say. I started with how unfair it was that he didn't protest his stepdaughter having her wedding on my date and how hurt I felt that he always seemed to prioritize Lily over me. I told him how his stupid scene had destroyed the day that I dreamt of and I had to put up a brave face for everyone's sake. I didn't hold back. I needed him to understand the full impact of his actions, or rather, his inactions. He listened quietly, which was surprising, but as soon as I finished, he launched into a classic guilt trip. He started talking about how hard it was for him to juggle two families, how he tried his best to be there for everyone, and how he felt unappreciated. Then came the kicker. He said he thought I was being too harsh and that maybe I should consider how difficult things were for him and Lily, especially after her last-minute decision to have her biological dad walk her down the aisle. It was like he completely missed the point of our conversation. He even had the nerve to suggest that I might have overreacted to the whole situation, implying that my wedding wasn't the only important thing happening that day and it was not that big of a deal. I was stunned. It felt like I was talking to a wall this whole time and he didn't get a single word I said. It was as if my feelings were less valid because he was having a hard time managing his commitments. I left that meeting feeling more confused and hurt than ever. So, I'm turning to you for some perspective. Am I the a-hole for being upset that my dad chose to prioritize his stepdaughter over me, not just on my wedding day but consistently throughout my life? I feel justified in my feelings, but the way he flipped the script has me second-guessing myself. I've always tried to be understanding and forgiving, but this feels like the last straw. I don't want to completely cut him out of my life, but I also can't keep being hurt by his actions. What should I do? How do I set boundaries without burning bridges? Any advice or similar experiences would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. It's been a couple of weeks since my last post, and I've got an update to share. Last weekend, I unexpectedly ran into my dad at a family gathering. Despite my initial hesitation, I decided to stay and try to keep things civil. Unfortunately, the situation quickly became uncomfortable. As the event progressed, my dad started making comments that felt like thinly veiled criticisms of my life choices. He kept emphasizing the importance of traditional family values, which seemed like a direct jab at my decisions. Things took a turn for the worse when he casually mentioned how unfortunate it was that I had chosen not to have him walk me down the aisle at my wedding and instead had some random man. The way he phrased it implied that I had deliberately ruined a special family moment, deflecting the blame. Throughout the gathering, my dad, like a classic narcissist, continued to make remarks that minimized my experiences and decisions. He spoke about family values in a way that seemed targeted at me, implying that my choices somehow went against these ideals. Despite my attempts to steer the conversation to neutral topics, he persistently returned to these sensitive subjects. It became very clear that my dad was more interested in promoting his view of how things should be rather than trying to understand my perspective. His comments and attitude just created a tense atmosphere. What angered me more was it was not even our party and I could see my relatives judging us. Eventually, I felt compelled to leave earlier than planned, because I couldn't stand everyone's judgment. Moreover, the constant pressure and subtle jabs from my dad had become too much to bear, and I needed to remove myself from the situation. Now that I've had a chance to reflect, I realize that Dad is not changing his behavior at all. This encounter has only reinforced my belief that my dad is more invested in maintaining his own narrative than in understanding or supporting me. One particular thing that I have noticed about Dad is that he always has his emotional blow-ups in front of a huge group of people so that there could be a scene. He's not interested in having a conversation or solving anything, he just wants to embarrass me. It's becoming increasingly clear that he sees nothing wrong with his actions and is completely unaware of how he's made me feel over the years. I'm starting to understand that I need to focus on my own well-being and happiness, but it's definitely very hard. I'm grateful for the support I've received here on Reddit. Your support means more than you know. It's helping me navigate these complicated situations and figure out my next steps. Till then, I would love some advice from you guys. Update 2. Hey guys, I'm here with another update, and this one's really thrown me for a loop. Recently, I caught up with a cousin who attended Lily's wedding, and what she told me has left me dumbfounded. During our conversation, my friend casually mentioned something about Lily's wedding that caught me completely off guard. Apparently, Lily had been quite open about her choice of wedding date, revealing that she deliberately selected the same date as my wedding. This wasn't just a coincidence or an oversight, it was, in Lily's own words, a power move. According to my friend, Lily openly bragged about this decision at her wedding. She told guests that choosing the same date was her way of asserting her place in the family. She wanted to ensure that everyone would remember her big day, even if it meant overshadowing mine. And apparently, she also had reasons for it. She told everyone that I was always jealous of her, and would often have arguments with Dad and her mom about her. As I have already mentioned in my story, yes, I was jealous of her for a while. But I never blamed her or argued with my stepmom about anything. Even at my lowest, I was mature enough to not hate her. The only person I blamed for my trauma was Dad, because he was the one choosing to neglect me. And while we have brought up Dad, Lily also said all kinds of stuff about him. She told the people at the party that he wanted to ruin her day because he never really loved her as his daughter. He only took care of her because he wanted her mother's money. He was never there when she needed him and was busy catering to his ex-wife and daughter. What surprised me the most was how could my stepmom listen to all of this, when she knew the truth. She was a very kind woman when I was a kid, but at this point, I guess I really know no one. Anyway, my friend overheard Lily discussing this with some of her bridesmaids. They were laughing about my reaction to the date clash, dismissing my concerns as overly dramatic. It seems they found amusement in my distress over the situation. This explains a lot of stuff. Now we know why there was so much resistance when I initially raised concerns about the date clash. I think she made the elaborate plan of asking Dad to walk her down the aisle so that he would comply with her schemes. But when she knew that he was not needed, she threw him away like trash. At the time, I was told it was purely coincidental and that changing the date would be too difficult. Now, it's clear that this was all part of Lily's calculated plan. I wish that I could pity Dad, but this is just his karma getting to him. I've been trying to piece together other incidents that might make more sense in light of this information. There were several occasions where Lily seemed to go out of her way to one-up me or draw attention to herself during family events. At the time, I brushed these off as just a random incident or misunderstandings. For example, it could not have been a mere coincidence that she was going through a breakdown while I was getting surgery. Whenever there was an important event in my life, somehow Lily also had something going on. Now, I'm seeing a pattern that I hadn't fully recognized before. At the same time, I'm also thinking about my relatives' reaction to this. Is everybody present at Lily's wedding seeing me as the villain? I honestly don't know how to proceed. Part of me wants to confront Lily about this, to call her out on her behavior. But another part of me wonders if it's worth the emotional energy, given her past responses to my concerns. I'm considering reaching out to other family members to see if they are aware of this situation. However, I'm hesitant to potentially create more family drama or be seen as stirring up trouble. For now, I've decided to take a step back from family gatherings. I've declined the next few invitations, citing work commitments. This has given me some much-needed space to process everything and consider my next steps. I've also started seeing a therapist to help me navigate these complex family dynamics. It's been helpful to have a neutral party to discuss these issues with and to get strategies for setting healthy boundaries. Looking ahead, I'm not sure what my relationship with Lily and the rest of the family will look like. I know I need to prioritize my own mental health, even if that means creating more distance between us. I'm grateful for this Reddit community and the support you've shown me through all of this. Your insights and advice have been invaluable as I navigate this challenging situation. I'll keep you updated as things develop. Thanks for listening and for being a sounding board as I work through all of this. I'm not sure what hurts more, the fact that Lily went out of her way to spite me her whole life, or that my dad was not even once able to uncover her facade. This bombshell has made me reevaluate my entire relationship with both of them. I am so grateful for the support and validation I've received from you all. It's reassuring to know that I'm not overreacting and that my feelings are valid. So, a big thanks to all of you. Update 3, hey everyone, I'm back with what's likely to be my final update for a while. I've taken some big steps to address the situation with my dad and Lily, and I wanted to share them with you all. After everything that's happened, my husband suggested we take a short getaway to clear our heads. During this time, I really reflected on the whole situation and came to some tough decisions. With encouragement from friends and this amazing Reddit community, I decided it was time to set some firm boundaries. Last week, I arranged to meet my dad at his place. I went in with a clear plan and was determined to lay everything out on the table. I told him about how his actions, or often lack thereof, have hurt me deeply over the years. I specifically addressed his recent behavior around the weddings and made it clear that it was unacceptable. As I expected, my dad didn't take it well at first. He tried to flip the script, accusing me of being unreasonable and claiming that I was the one tearing the family apart by holding grudges. But this time, I didn't back down. I stood my ground and told him point blank that if he didn't listen to what I had to say, he was at risk of losing me forever. The conversation was intense and lasted for hours. We rehashed old arguments and brought up years of unresolved issues. This time, I didn't wait to listen to his side anymore, because that is what was happening till now, and this was going to be my moment. As for Lily, I've decided to go no contact with her. It's become painfully clear that she doesn't see me as family and has no qualms about hurting me to get what she wants. I explained this to my dad as well, making it clear that I wouldn't be attending any family events where she was present. I did not go into a lot of detail about what I've heard Lily say about my dad because he would have just seen it as me bad-mouthing her. I was a little disappointed in my stepmom because I used to see her as a mother figure, but with everyone switching sides, I am not surprised anymore. This decision hasn't been easy, and I know it might cost me my relationships with other family members. Some might believe Lily's version of events or side with her out of convenience. But I've reached a point where I'm okay with that. If I'm going to lose family over lies and manipulation, then so be it. My mental health and well-being have to come first. Moving forward, I'm focusing on building a positive, supportive environment with my husband and the people who genuinely care about me. I've started reaching out to old friends I've neglected and even joined a local book club to meet new people. I want to express my deepest gratitude to all of you here on Reddit. Your advice, support, and sometimes tough love have been a guiding light during this incredibly difficult time. You've helped me find the strength to stand up for myself and prioritize my own happiness. Thank you all again. I may not be updating as frequently, but know that your support has made a world of difference. Wishing you all the best.